The varied and sometimes wacky world of Soviet minibuses. While many were practical, produced in large numbers, and gave long lives, others were more obscure, including one prototype taxi minibus that predicted future features of public transportation, decades before they were even a thought. This is the story of the VNIITE-PT taxi minibus, the little bus that was big on ideas. Hi, this is Jeffrey. Now, if you follow my channel, you probably already know that I have done a number of videos on Soviet-era minibuses. Some of these buses were manufactured into the tens of thousands, while others, more specialized, had only a couple hundred built. These buses were generally designed and built at state automotive companies. However, there was one minibus. It was actually a taxi designed like a minibus that was designed and built at a state-owned design studio. It was called the VNIITE-PT taxi, or VNIITE-PT. It's a really fascinating story, so let's get started in learning about the VNIITE-PT taxi minibus. The 1960s were an exciting time for futuristic transportation concepts. But in the Soviet Union, a visionary was hard at work on a unique design that could have revolutionized transport services in its major cities. VNIITE, or VNIITE, the All-Union Scientific Research Institute of Industrial Design, was created in 1962 mainly to improve the quality of the design of Soviet products in order to decrease the gap between the USSR and the industrial power of Western countries. One of its 9 key sections was dedicated to improve the state of transportation design. And one of the concepts it created could have forever changed the existence of taxi and minibus services. Making its debut in 1964, the VNIITE-PT, as it was dubbed, was mainly named after its state incubator, with PT an abbreviation for Perspective Taxi. The 1964 concept vehicle was the creation of the Institute's chief transports designer, Yuri Aronovich Dolmatovsky. On the surface, the VNIITE-PT may appear impractical, but a glimpse under the hood reveals a marvel of a vehicle well ahead of its time. Dramatic, sharp contours and a bubbled windshield lent a futuristic aesthetic, almost as if the taxi came straight out of a Gerry Anderson TV series. It was, instead, the creation of a brilliant mind that was developing forward-thinking concepts, many that would not be incorporated into taxis and buses for another 20 years or so. So, let's now hear from members of the design team on the goals of this new taxi.
The vehicle aimed to function more like a small bus than a traditional car, prioritizing passenger comfort and functionality. It would feature sliding passenger doors and a low floor, making it easier to enter and exit even with luggage or strollers. A partition will separate the driver from the passengers, a feature not currently adopted in taxis. The vehicle is designed for ample passenger space, with seating for 4, 3 on a sofa and 1 on a fold-out seat, and room for luggage behind the seats.
It will incorporate advanced manufacturing concepts for its time, including a steel frame with plastic panels. Overall, the new taxi will emphasize function and passenger comfort, maximizing interior space and accessibility.
Most taxis in the Soviet Union in 1964 were a variant of the Gaz M21 Volga. Being more traditional in design, the M21 taxi got the job done, but Dolmatovsky's futuristic alternative would probably have been a more efficient method of passenger transport. At first glance, it's a strange, almost cartoonish-looking vehicle. But as you start to break down the overall design, you begin to see the genius at work. Now, let's take a look at some of the basic specifications of the VNIITE-PT Taxi Minibus. Number 1, length is 4.23 meters. Number 2, width is 1.78 meters. Number 3, height is 1.62 meters. Number 4, wheelbase is 1.9 meters. Number 5, weight is 1,250 kilograms. Number 6, passenger capacity is 4, with 3 on a sofa and 1 on a fold-down seat. Number 7, engine is the Moscovich 408 with 4 cylinders generating 50 horsepower at 4,750 RPM. And finally, number 8, top speed is about 100 kilometers per hour. Unlike traditional cars with a lip at the doors, the VNIITE-PT followed its designer's intent and had a low floor and sliding door. Strollers and rolling luggage could be conveniently rolled in, streamlining the boarding process. The taxi's interior had more than enough floor space for luggage without impeding passenger legroom, including space behind the sofa. The real marvel of the VNIITE-PT was Dolmatovsky's ability to unwittingly peer into the future. In the 1970s, a British designer, Fergus Pollock, started on a design for Chrysler UK that eventually became the 1984 Renault Espace. Though there is no proven link between Pollock's concept and Dolmatovsky's prototype, a side-by-side comparison shows some similarities in design. However, the Espace, quite interestingly, featured a chassis of galvanized steel covered in a polyester composite, similar to the VNIITE-PT. What's also intriguing is that this vehicle followed the Soviet Saab Start minibus of 1963, which had a fiberglass body over a wood frame, of which less than 200 were built. The VNIITE taxi features a unique design element that wouldn't be out of place today: a thick but curvy plastic partition separating the driver from the passengers. This type of detail wouldn't be widely adopted and required for taxis in large cities like New York until the early 1970s. And the meter was angled toward the passengers for full visibility. One of Dolmatovsky's greatest feats for the VNIITE-PT was creating a passenger-friendly design without sacrificing the space for an engine powerful enough to traverse Soviet cities in the 1960s. The engine compartment is just wide and deep enough to house the hardware. The motor fits in a very small space alongside the gearbox, battery, drive shaft, and even the spare tire mounting bracket. To make this possible, Dolmatovsky angled the gearbox to maximize space. Despite how impressive the VNIITE-PT was, only one was ever assembled and tested on the streets of Moscow in 1966. It is now preserved. Though it may look strange, the prototype ended up being a combination of good ideas, just a little bit too ahead of its time. And so there it is, the story of the VNIITE-PT perspective taxi of the Soviet Union. Now what's interesting to note here is that back in 1976, the Museum of Modern Art in New York held an exhibit on the future taxicab of New York City, whereby manufacturers from all over the world submitted prototypes for consideration to be mass-produced for the streets of New York City. However, nothing ever came of it, but it would have been really nice to have that PT taxi there. Unfortunately, it was not there for obvious reasons back in the 1970s, and I did a video on that exhibit as well. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this look at the VNIITE-PT Perspective Taxi. And as always, thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye.